Governor Chris Christie. President Obama handing Donald Trump the keys to some of our nation's top secret information. That we're talking about as well this hour. Hello, everyone. I'm Heather Nauert. The president's daily intelligence briefing is now available to President-elect Trump. The White House calling this an important step for the smooth transfer of power. Our chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Herridge, has more on this from Washington. Catherine, what has taken place in those briefings so far?
Well, thanks, Heather. Two intelligence sources tell Fox News that the president's daily brief, known as the PDB, is now available to President-elect Trump. But there's really no expectation at this time that the briefings will begin until next week at the earliest. There is a significant distinction between the briefings for candidates and the PDB. The candidates' briefs are like primers to help bring them up to speed on topics such as Iran, China, or ISIS. Candidates have been free to request additional briefs on topics of interest, and those additional briefs were shared with their opponent. For example, if candidate Trump wanted a special brief on ISIS, the same brief would be offered to Clinton. The PDB is really like a highly classified newspaper for the president and contains all the major developments, and there's a very high threshold for intelligence to be included. President Obama is the first president to routinely take the PDB electronically on his iPad. This was a dramatic break from past practice. The idea behind the PDB is that it's an engagement between the president and the briefer that really drives questions for follow-up by the intelligence community, Heather.
Okay, so how will the briefings work then under a president-elect Trump?
Well, that's a good question. So here's what we know right now. Fox is told that sometime in late August, early September, there was a direction from the White House to the intelligence community that basically said the winner, whoever it is, will get full access to the PDB to ensure a smooth transition. And this commitment was very publicly reinforced on Wednesday.
The presidency and the vice presidency is bigger than any of us. So I have instructed my team to follow the example that President Bush's team set 8 years ago and work as hard as we can to make sure that this is a successful transition for the president-elect.
The PDB has to be done in a secure facility, what's often known as a SCIF. Fox News has learned that there is a dedicated transition space near the White House where it can be used by the president-elect to receive the PDB when he's in Washington. But when it comes to New York City, the president-elect will need to travel to a secure federal facility, probably FBI headquarters in New York, that he has used in the past for these briefings. And just for a final note, these PDBs take a lot of heavy lifting within the intelligence community, and they are offered to the president 6 days a week. And if that is what President-elect Trump wants to get as well, he's welcome to do that, really starting at any time now.
Well, as a commander-in-chief, he can certainly get that. That is fascinating. Catherine, thanks for a look at how that all goes down. Well, the transition is well underway in Mr. Trump's journey to the White House. He tweeted today, quote, "Busy day planned in New York. I'll be making some very important decisions on the people who will be running our government." Well, some top Democrats have yet to warm up to the idea of a Trump presidency. A statement from Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid reads in part, quote, "If this is going to be a time of healing, we must first put the responsibility for healing where it belongs, at the feet of Donald Trump, a sexual predator who lost the popular vote and fueled his campaign with hate and bigotry." How do you really feel? And then Senator Elizabeth Warren says, quote, "He encouraged a toxic stew of hatred and fear." Senator Bernie Sanders, though, seems a bit more optimistic. Listen to this.
There are a lot of areas I think we can work together if he was sincere in what he said during the campaign.
Well, let's check in with Chris Stirewalt. He's a Fox News digital politics editor and co-host of the show. I'll tell you what, Chris, wow, how are they going to get things done in Washington if some of the leaders of the party are already talking like that?
Oh, Harry Reid is on his way out.
Well, he's on his way out, but nevertheless, still a party leader.
In name. Chuck Schumer is the rising power for the Democrats in the Senate. And when you hear, and Elizabeth Warren did say that about Donald Trump, you know, the other thing she said about Donald Trump was that Democrats should work and run to the space to work with him on the priorities that they share. Remember, Donald Trump's infrastructure plan, his plan to build roads, bridges, et cetera, in the United States was larger than Hillary Clinton's plan. So this is where Bernie Sanders, this is where Elizabeth Warren and others are eager to see Trump succeed. And I think that's part of why you are seeing this honeymoon phase in Washington.
Well, I'm wondering if that honeymoon phase is over a lot quicker than some had anticipated using language like that. But you bring up that issue of infrastructure, something very important. Some folks on the right, like Donald Trump, and on the left, like Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, and others, are really hot on that infrastructure plan. How do you see that working out? Is that good common ground that they can really forge something with?
Right. This is one where the conservative wing of the Republican Party is going to have to just lump it. It's not
because they're frustrated. It's a lot of money.
It's more borrowing and spending, obviously, than conservatives would want to do, but it's something that Trump ran on. It's something he talked about throughout. He's been consistent, and it's a point where left and right can agree. As both Barack Obama and Donald Trump have essentially said, no more nation building abroad, nation building here at home. So that's something that conservative Republicans are going to have to lump, and that's one that Trump gets. I'm
wondering what the risks might be for those on the right and those on the left of actually working together, doing something together if this happens.
Well, one of the salubrious things about Donald Trump's election, whether you liked him or whether you didn't like him, the fact that he is an ideological mishmash, that he has ideas that are very liberal, very conservative, that he's all over the place, that because of that, there are opportunities like this for people to come together on specific points. If you can get Paul Ryan and Bernie Sanders to vote for the same thing, you're bringing change to Washington for sure.
That is for sure, and that would be something to see. Hey, I heard you had an interesting idea earlier today, and it involved Senator Kelly Ayotte, who just, of course, lost re-election up in her home state, and also Joe Manchin. And you think that could be a good idea for a Trump administration. What is that?
Well, I think that every president-elect, as he comes in, wants to demonstrate, reach across the aisle and demonstrate goodwill. Trump has to bind up wounds within his party and then across the party aisle. Two possibilities. One is Kelly Ayotte, who has been a stalwart for the Republicans on foreign affairs. She could be a potential Secretary of Defense or even something else in the administration, but that would be a move that would show goodwill that way. And the other thing is, you mentioned Joe Manchin, but another one is Jim Webb, the former Democratic senator from Virginia who ran against Hillary Clinton. Yeah. Finding a place for a moderate Democrat in his administration would probably be a good idea.
Well, that would involve him. An interesting one with Kelly Ayotte, since she failed to endorse him, and that, some say, caused some problems with her re-election in her home state. But, I want to ask you this. As Democrats look to move forward, who shapes that party? You have Elizabeth Warren talking to the AFL-CIO, really rabble-rousing there, and then you have Bernie Sanders, who is moderating things, being a little bit more kind to Donald Trump. Who do you see taking the lead?
Well, look, and you also have to wonder, what is Tim Kaine's role going to be? I think Schumer right now, Chuck Schumer from New York, is the one to watch. He has a long-standing good rapport with Trump, but at the same time, he's got liberal firebrands to his left that aren't going to want him to do business with Trump. I would say at the beginning, it's Schumer, who is most likely successor to Reid as the Senate Minority Leader, is going to have a lot to say about the tenor of things in Washington. But really, overall, the Democrats have a pretty ugly fight that they're going to have to get through here. Hillary Clinton was not a popular nominee among Democrats, but they rallied behind her as best they could to try to stop Trump. They failed in that way, so that means they have a lot of unfinished business that they've got to work through between moderates and the left and all of that jazz. It's going to be a rough Thanksgiving table.
And there was a messy meeting at the DNC, which we'll talk about later on in the show. Anyone interested in that, you want to stick around for it. Finally, I want to ask you about Mike Pence, because Mike Pence is now taking over from Governor Chris Christie as head of the transition team. What are you hearing in Washington about that?
Well, we had always known that Donald Trump's vice president, if he were to become president, would be a very active one, and that seemed to be the role that was laid out as he was discussing it. In Pence, we have the potential makings, as you see something that I've never seen before, which is a vice president-elect running a transition team. You almost start to see Pence in the role of sort of deputy president, not just vice president, not sitting around and waiting to be invited to funerals, but in fact acting as sort of a deputy president to Trump.
Yeah, well, Cheney did that as well for President Bush. But, when you hear Paul Ryan, he always says, my good friend Mike Pence. And, of course, they're friends, having served in the House together. But you just have to wonder if there's going to be even more of a bond between those two men because of that relationship and because there have been tensions with Donald Trump, at least in the past. Chris Stirewalt, thank you so much. Great to see you as always. We'll be checking out your show this weekend. Well, the post-election market rally is fading a bit as we head into the afternoon. Right now, the Dow is up just a touch, 4 points. Ashley Webster is live for us at the New York Stock Exchange with what is going on today. Hi there, Ashley.
Hello there, Heather. Well, you know what? Much like the political pundits and the pollsters, the financial experts, I say so-called financial experts, got it totally wrong. A Donald Trump victory has not meant that the markets were going to be pushed into free fall. It's all rather quiet today after a very tumultuous week. But the Dow Jones Industrial Average on track right now to have its best week in over 5 years. How about that? Also, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ too are getting ready to snap a 2-week down streak. All of this based on Donald Trump's, well, pro-growth agenda. Less tax, less regulation, more private sector money on defense spending, deregulating the banks, corporate tax reform, improving the infrastructure, which could be a boon to so many who are looking for work, and also, of course, a benefit to the country. Now, which of the financial stocks are doing especially well because of Donald Trump? Check out Morgan Stanley, up 15%, JP Morgan Chase, 12%, United States Steel, also very high, GE as well, doing very well. Now, on the flip side, which of those stocks not doing so well now that Donald Trump is the president-elect? Well, how about social media? Facebook and Amazon both down. Seen that Silicon Valley, maybe more certainly in Hillary Clinton's camp, they're very unsure what Donald Trump is going to do with big technology. And then what about the electric cars, Tesla and First Solar, the sun alternative energy companies? Well, Donald Trump says he's going to revive the fossil fuel industry, the coal miners, oil drilling and so on. And so not very good for those alternative fuel stocks, Heather.
And do away with some of those EPA regulations. So
yes.
We will look at that one later. Ashley Webster, great to see you down at the Stock Exchange.
You.
Have a great weekend. Well, Republicans ready to hit the ground running with their new boss, they say.
There are all these things that we know we need to do, and now we're going through sort of the nitty-gritty details about how to get these things done.
Okay, but could it end up being more of a slow jog than a fast dash? The unconventional candidate has butted heads with party leaders before. We'll take a look at some of the issues Mr. Trump is now facing. Plus, another result of this election, a tax on soda or pop, depending on where you live. How much is it, and who is it going to affect? We'll tell you about that. Hill say that they are ready to get the country back on track, preparing to make good on Donald Trump's campaign promises, including the repeal of Obamacare.
Obamacare, I mean, it's got to be up there.
That's fine, though, absolutely. Obamacare, we want to go big, we want to go bold, we want to do everything we said we'd do. Obamacare's failing, so it has to get replaced quickly. That's clearly high on our list. So is tax reform, so is securing the border. There are all these things that we know we need to do, and now we're going through sort of the nitty-gritty details about how to get these things done.
Steve Moore is a senior economic advisor to President-elect Trump, and he loves nitty-gritty details. This just crossing the wires not long ago. The Wall Street Journal now reporting that the infrastructure plan, $1 billion that Donald Trump is talking about, would be paid for privately. How would that work?
By the way, Heather, what I love is the sound of President-elect Trump. That's what I love. Look, this is a kind of a new idea that Donald Trump and the economic team has put on the table, which is to basically allow private investment in infrastructure. For example, with respect to roads and highways, you could have the private sector build these private sector roads, and then you basically have tolls and so on to pay for them over time. We have some of those in Virginia, where I live, and they work very efficiently. The private sector builds the roads much more quickly and efficiently than the government does, and it seems to be a good direction given the fact that we have trillion-dollar deficits. You know, the federal government doesn't have a lot of money to be spending right now.
That is a really interesting idea. You mentioned, pardon me, that it's taking place down in your home state. Let me transition now to another issue, and that is, pardon me, Steve, sorry. Obamacare, maybe that is what I need right now. But that is an issue that folks on Capitol Hill are anxious to get working on, as is Mr. Trump. So how exactly will the repeal and replace program work under Donald Trump?
Well, look, I think it's going to be a top priority. There's no question about it, because I think one of the things that actually swung the election was Obamacare, the huge spike in premiums that tens of millions of American families are facing. And as you just heard from that clip from Paul Ryan, there isn't a lot of time to waste here to get this done, because the costs are simply increasingly unaffordable to families, and also so many of the insurance companies are dropping out of the market. There are as many as a quarter of the counties right now in America where you only have one insurance company. So that's not a whole lot of competition. What we want to do, Heather, is just add dramatic increases in competition so people can choose not from 1 or 2 or 3 plans, but from 5 or 10 or 100 plans, by allowing people to buy insurance across state lines, by allowing different kinds of insurance packages. Obamacare is essentially a one-size-fits-all. So young people could buy more scaled-back catastrophic insurance policies that would be much cheaper for them, and that's the way to get young people to sign up for insurance.
Well, Republicans finally have the consensus to get that through, because you had the repeal part in place previously, but not the replacement part.
That's true. And I have to admit, there are 3 or 4 different plans out there in the House and the Senate about how to fix it. I mean, there's a total consensus that it has to be fixed. You're going to see the legislative wheels turn in terms of coming up with a plan that covers everybody, continues to provide care for people with pre-existing conditions, but lowers the cost. And, I've looked at some of these models. We believe you can cut the cost by 20, 30, 40%. Per family by just adding competition to the model, so people can shop around and find the best price for them.
All right, Stephen Moore, thank you so much. Best of luck to you on the transition. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Well, new concerns about ISIS using chemical weapons as Iraqi troops are told proceed with caution in and around Mosul, the latest from the battle to liberate that city from ISIS terrorists. Plus, this Veterans Day, we salute all of our veterans and bring you the inspiring story of a former Marine who's risking his own life to treat the wounded in Iraq. We'll be right back. Iraqi troops reporting slow but steady progress in the fight to retake Mosul, as we learn from the United Nations that ISIS has used chemical weapons. Troops are now moving farther into the city, but they're having some difficulty as they push into more densely populated areas. The streets are too narrow for tanks, and Iraqi forces cannot rely on airstrikes in order to avoid killing civilians. Military analysts say that ISIS has been stockpiling chemicals inside that city and fear that the terror group could be saving them for one final battle. Well, as Iraqi troops move forward in Mosul, brave Americans are putting their lives on the line to help. One former Marine who's using his medical skills to save the lives of both soldiers and civilians injured in that brutal battle. So as we honor America's heroes on this Veterans Day, our senior affairs correspondent Greg Palcott brings us this U.S. veteran story.
The U.S. is helping in many ways to help defeat ISIS here in Iraq. Airstrikes, mine clearing, logistical support. But there is one young American man, among others, who's making it his personal mission to help deal with the atrocities coming from the militants. Take a look.
Meet Pete Reed. He's the guy with the blonde hair. The 27-year-old Bordentown, New Jersey native was a ski instructor, served in the Marines, and learned medical skills. Now he's saving Iraqi soldier and civilian lives on the ISIS front line.
So at the end of the day, they're just people, and they're in the middle of a meat grinder. They're getting torn up bad. We're just trying to make it so a few more people come home, a few more kids live.
The Slovak medical charity he works for has set up a field hospital on the side of the road in the Gogjali neighborhood next to Mosul. Little more than a few cots, medical supplies, and a lot of care. The terror fight never far away. ISIS rocket shells landing within 100 yards. We asked him why Americans should care about this battle halfway around the world.
This is it. Stop them here. You don't want them coming home. You don't want to worry about all that. Stop them here.
You're helping out.
We're doing a very little bit to a very big battle.
Medic Pete Reed told me that battle could only get worse as Iraqi forces move into the densely populated central part of Mosul, and it could go on for many months. Unfortunately, Pete Reed and many others could be busy for a long time to come.
Yeah.
Heather.
They sure could. Greg Palcott, thank you so much. Well, Democrats facing a crisis of leadership after the rocky tenure of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Remember that one? And then Donna Brazile. Who could be stepping forward to fill their shoes and what a new leader must do to lead that party forward? Plus, there's this. New details on the trail. Now heading up. Chair 3 Donald Trump's Ivanka Dunbar, Jared is a Democratic pollster on his strategy consulting strategist with Red Gianna and Christie. React your
wow. I mean my extent Trump the whole way through and all politics now rather than personnel decisions. I leaded this for a long time. Be doing
just Chris and change who has experience has newspaper
and I mean listen the I off judging him if he was gonna go Bridgegate last week and keep him around, see how it plays out, you know, if AG obviously Donald Trump Mike Arena and my friends about the VP of, you know, or Tim Kidd would have given to the Senate a share and maybe we wouldn't have gotten more. So my great release for Donald. It's a lot of smart.
He's very style. Are you meet? He comes. So it's an interest between them. So let me ask you, Gianna, then about the Hillary Clinton to those got so exposed and so over the Democrat
figure out a girl person in one every book or some new do that who have largely run money we for Hillary.
Donald Trump is president.
No, they the favor of Hillary Clinton.
All those leaks, everything. Debbie Wasserman because of result of it. In fact, that New York and see apparently at meeting shouting a lot of some people are busy inside. Benny, do you
should be it's important. I believe that each chair is elected. That's DNC and the chair needs each on the elections. I believe we should have lost. A Bernie was backer, Muslim, African. Well,
why is it because Democrat?
No.
The past?
I think so. I don't character for the someone hit of Democrats who are Reagan, more Democrats. We're going to be full in.
Into brings up come entire and is part of the so is the owner said, hey, I the Bible to a Democrat. Hey, you have not been with party.
Have a tough time making the tolerance our president.
Donald and people Republican never Democrat different background believes in party back down Republican party as well.
And that is Hillary Clinton talking about horrible. She's now said your.
Oh, I think it wasn't the big was a problem. Being saying support Trump supporters that would be a no. She made clear that they're not support Trump's campaign. These views elicited a
Cardiana Caldwell. Thank you so much. CEO delivery called spelling out his expectations. Trump email Malone said that he will empower some come in the place work to team that is everyone else and your family in the United States only all place no rub hug and should well you're some other beverages.
Illinois is the legend. It's funny. California all vote for Hillary. Now, all of them have in some communities they should go. Take a look at boxes. So Boulder, Colorado adds to Philadelphia, which are the California. And yes, Illinois, that Illinois cogs funding some big revenue. They need the revenue. Dollars. That's what they think is $18 million. Oh, and Boulder. How you well, if a 2-liter bottle on you be on the distributors, but it has to long more. So there you go. In these other cases, they voted. It was the passed it.
So in Chicago, East Coast. Here.
Yeah. Enough with this like this to pay is the first community that 6% sports energy percent of Washington.
That's good.
So maybe it works.
Chicago, Josh, thank you. trash window on tape. Oh. But on inside Eagle clothing still window. Find it. The deer play sneak. Well, second out going where second. Now he's regular from just unveiling members part of that. Last 4
in private is most people.
I'm John Scott on the Fox News deck. More ahead on what's next for President-elect Trump. He made a lot of promises during his historic White House campaign. We'll speak with Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace about whether the incoming Trump administration can deliver on those promises. That's coming up when I fill in on Shepard Smith reporting.
And we'll be watching John Scott. Well, Fox News alert right now. Donald Trump releasing the names on his transition team. On it, VP-elect Mike Pence and 3 of Donald Trump's children. New York Congressman Chris Collins has been a staunch supporter of President-elect Donald Trump. He's the co-chair of Mr. Trump's House Leadership Committee and is now on his transition team, the executive committee of that. Congressman, congratulations. You just got word today that you were asked to serve on the transition team. What will your role be?
Well, Heather, yes, you're right. I got the call around noon today and very graciously accepted. I'm honored to be assisting, as I have said, in any way I can. I'm going to remain in Congress. I explained that to Mr. Trump when he called the day after the election, that that's where a role that I see on energy and commerce doing the meat and potatoes, hard work that committees do, especially on the health subcommittee redoing the replacement for Obamacare. But, the transition committee, we've got 3,000 or 4,000 jobs to fill. I believe somewhere around 350 in the West Wing alone. And it's going to have to start moving very quickly. So I'll play whatever role that I'm asked to play. We know we're getting inundated with requests from all of our congressional districts with folks that would like to serve in one place or another. And I can't say enough about Rick Dearborn, who's been announced as the new executive director. Jeff Sessions, former chief. He is a real workaholic. Detail-oriented.
Well, you are certainly going to need that. I want to ask you about some news that we just got a short while ago, and that is that Mr. Pence will actually be heading up this, and that Chris Christie will be handling some smaller issues. Why did that happen? Why the change?
Oh, no, I was not part of any decision-making pool. That was probably Mr. Trump himself, and I wouldn't doubt some input from his kids. But that was his decision, and again, my role was I was asked to fill it, to be a member of the Executive Council, and again, I'm honored to do it. But I was not part of the decision as to who would fill what slots.
Understood. I want to ask you about Donald Trump's 3 children and also his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who's been a close advisor of his. Now they are on the transition committee as well. What are they going to do?
Well, I think a lot of us, it's going to be like anything else, discussing the pros and cons of various people, having folks bubble to the top, if you want to say the top 3 or top 10, and then like everyone else does, you get different inputs from different people, and narrow it down. And at some point, I'm sure for these key roles, Mr. Trump, Mr. Pence, we'll be interviewing them directly along with the chief of staff once they're announced. So
does this indicate,
it's, I think, a pretty typical hiring process.
Does it seem to indicate, though, that Mr. Trump is going to want to look outside of Washington? The fact that he would bring in his children who just don't have Washington experience?
Well, I mean, Mr. Trump is a change agent. He has said he's going to turn things upside down. I expect we're going to see a lot of people coming into some very key roles outside of government to set the vision. You're obviously going to have people who understand the inner workings of government with here and there. But I do fully expect we're going to see some outsiders. That's what he was elected to do, bring change, and it's pretty hard to have change if you're recycling the same old, same old.
All right, Congressman Chris Collins serves in the western part of New York. Sir, thank you for joining us, and best of luck to you in your work
Heather,
on
very
that
good to be with
transition.
you. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. You as well. Secretary of State John Kerry arriving in, of all places, Antarctica, becoming the highest-ranking U.S. official to ever visit the southern continent. After landing at McMurdo Station, he plans to visit a research station near the South Pole. During his trip, he'll meet with scientists who study climate change. In the last 3 months, Mr. Kerry has been to all 7 continents, making him the first Secretary of State to accomplish that feat. A dream come true this Veterans Day, one of America's bravest, settling into his new custom home, and for veterans who are struggling with PTSD. Welcome back. An injured veteran spending this Veterans Day in his new home thanks to the Gary Sinise Foundation. Army Captain Luis Avila seen his custom home in Maryland for the very first time, his wife overcome with emotion as she tried to express her gratitude to those who made this dream come true.
Thank you for this amazing blessing. You all are family, for the ones that they travel, for the many hours to be here.
Wow, incredible. Her husband, Captain Avila, was severely wounded while serving in Afghanistan. The actor Gary Sinise attending that ceremony thing that they have.
Healing for veterans suffering with PTSD.
I was hospitalized in the psych ward.
Animals can help reduce stress.
The empathy that you get, let's say, by having an animal or a dog helping you, that companionship. Is fundamental to the benefit of anybody suffering from PTSD.
Block. Chris Dumont has had steel for 2 years now and cut down.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful program and great work they're doing. Well, one special teenager dedicating his young life to track down and interview as many World War II veterans as he can and capture their stories on film. What a remarkable 19-year-old. Rishi Sharma is his name, and he says the stories are worth being told.
I was one of the first in my neighborhood to enlist. Yeah, so they hung out a flag. They hung this flag. My neighbor worked for the government, and he had this big flag that he put out by the window, And I still have it here as a memory of the period.
Well, Sharma has now set up a GoFundMe page to raise money for his efforts. And this Veterans Day, teaching honor and respect to our next generation. I'll give you the exclusive story behind the scenes.